But let's find out the way forward for the markets, which sectors as well that you can look at as a lucrative opportunity. Pashupati Advani now joining us. Good morning, Pashupati. Let's begin with talking about, how the markets have fared during these very trying times. Do you believe that, midway, the kind of exuberance that we saw was a tad irrational in nature, and that volatility will be the name of the game, that now, the doors are open for downside given the way the overall global economy, fears of a recession, job losses, etc. are panning out?
Well, obviously, the economic news is that we're seeing all around us is not so good. Your last guest obviously was a light bulb of optimism, which is great. Where he kind of had positioned himself to having migrant workers that were living around the villages of his factory, so he doesn't have that problem. He's got a vibrant market, so there are still jewels in the market that are available. And our job in this tough situation is to try and find them. But generally, if you are talking about anyone who's in a non-essential business, they're non-essential, and are struggling to even come up with revenues, despite the fact that some of them are allowed to open their factories with maybe a third workers or maybe a half in certain states. So it's a challenge for everyone. Avan?
Oh, yes, indeed it is. And at least for now, we're looking at, some signs of normalcy. Hopefully, we will have a little more clarity by the end of this week with respect to lockdown 4, yes or no. But at a time like this, what's the advice then, Pashupati? What do you think investors should do? Just, sort of stick it out at a time like this? Is there a lot of lucrative opportunity as well emerging, as now the mid-caps as well are aligning themselves with the frontliners, not seeing as adverse a fall as they were accustomed to?
One thing I am seeing, which is that the big are actually taking an opportunity to raise liquidity, which is a good thing, and actually it tells you that they're preparing themselves for the future. So yesterday there was a Bharti Airtel secondary placement. Today there's supposed to be one for Kotak Mahindra. We've been watching what Jio Platforms is up to. It's been that has honestly been mind-boggling, and fantastic that all these big VCs are writing big checks into India. But the reality is that the market is still floating. What I'm hearing is that the SIPs for June will be a little bit weaker because they had a 30-day cancellation. So maybe we won't have as much robust flows that come into equities. FIIs generally are being a little quiet towards India because there's a lot of uncertainty. And plus we have some saber rattling in Ladakh, which is not helping in matters because China and India have been sort of facing off. And, nobody knows really what's going on over there, but it doesn't sound good. And for it to be happening in the middle of this pandemic is, according to me, not cool at all. So, these are all the challenges that we face at this point.
Right. Pashupati, but you think financials have come to a point where the big five can be bought, or do you think there's further correction in the pipeline?
No, I'm still bearish on financials simply because I actually feel that it's only the tip of the iceberg. So far, people are managing to sort of put results. But what happens when you get to July and have to start reporting April, May, June? One thing I'm seeing is a lot of companies have taken the moratorium option. So then the question is, are they going to just forget about paying interest or just paying later? But at the end of it all, someone's got to bear it. So, it's going to be a tough call. The second thing is that so far we've seen cuts in salary, which is obviously going to affect certain sectors. But have we seen layoffs? Not yet, but we are seeing. I mean, I read today that Uber is laying off 600 staff. So that's the tip, and a lot of the VC-backed companies, which are actually they were looking at being the next set of unicorns, are seeing huge layoffs. So I think that those are the challenges that it's not just India; it's challenges that the whole world is facing, and India is probably facing it worse because we really don't have a welfare system to catch people.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do with Telecom then, Pashupati? Because interesting things playing out. It seems that the Jio platforms are going to be listed on the US bourses in another 2 years. At least that is what the buzz is. Then you've got this promoter selling into Bharti. That's brought the stock a bit lower. But then again, the question mark, it's a consensus trade. Do you buy them, buy Bharti afresh at these levels?
See, my thing on Telecom is I'm actually positive on Telecom because I still feel the ARPUs are very, very low. And, it doesn't take very much. We've gone from around 100, 110 to around 150, 160 ARPUs. And, if we get to 300, all three telecom companies are going to be laughing all the way to the bank. Now, the government also is probably not going to let us get to 300 in a hurry, but I think that every step we get towards 300, it also gets the government revenue. So, it's a win-win for everybody. Now, the question is, people are sitting at home, they're using more data, they're starting to do games, they're starting to watch content. All these things are positive for data providers and most important for telecom companies. So that's an industry that's here to stay and is not going to go away. The only other question is, are we going to have 5G in a hurry? Probably not. We don't need to invest in the technology yet. But I think that our existing 4G will get better and, it'll be a win-win for all concerned, including the consumer, because they're getting more content, education, all sorts of other stuff that's coming down the pipe using this.
Hello? Oh, right. Pashupati, it's hard to find a consistent sort of trend at the moment. Yesterday we had cement gaining, today it's lagging behind, commodities, any themes, even consumption for that matter. Urban consumption, however, we're seeing some glimmers there and some preference for names like a Jubilant Food, for example. What's your take when it comes to that segment of the market, particularly as you also just spoke about, perhaps lower disposable income going forward? Are you still positive on urban consumption?
Well, urban consumption is not going to go away, but it is, should I say, going down the value chain. So obviously that's good for a Jubilant because people who may have ordered from a high-end QSR restaurant may decide to eat pizza. So I think that's one of the things that's positive for Jubilant in this whole game. But yes, people's behavioral patterns are changing. We make jokes in our house that, when's the last time you actually wore shoes? Because we don't wear shoes in the house and, we haven't gone out very much. So, what happens to the shoe industry? What happens to the clothing industry? What happens to others which are not necessary for day to day? Food, on the other hand, is essential. People are getting bored of cooking at home, so they are spreading to a Jubilant and to other takeout menus. So maybe that's a thing that happens. But new models are going to, come up. New sort of ways of doing things are going to come up, and I think that's all very positive in the long run. But going back to sectors that one would like. Definitely healthcare is here to stay, whether we like it or not. Our hospitals we're seeing they're surely a lot less than we need. So obviously more hospitals will come up in CapEx. Logistics is another area. Diagnostics is another area. Pharmaceuticals, you already hear, you heard from your last guest that things seem to be okay. So there are sectors in there that are doing okay. I'm not particularly happy with autos. I'm not happy with financials yet. And so, we'll see. And again, I think the other industry that's likely to get some kind of a hit will be the mutual fund industry, because I think that you will see some redemptions. And, the Templeton problem, as I call it, is not going away in a hurry. So those are the other challenges for that space.
All right. All right, so that's the view coming in on consumption. Pashupati, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us and talking us through your view on trends as they stand. And geopolitics, yes, that's also come to the fore at a most untimely stage right now.